You're watching a clip from the Club podcast.
Make sure you follow it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and give it a 5-star review.
So here you go. Here's a lovely clip from our podcast.
Can I ask you a question? Is there a world in which the Saudi League, if they keep throwing enough money at players, could the Saudi League actually end up with some like genuine gravity?
I think it's harder for them than MLS. I think MLS is more of a destination. I know there's a wage cap, and obviously in Saudi Arabia you can pay them 5-10 times more than what's in MLS. But basically, between Saudi Arabia, MLS, a couple of maybe other European leagues, you're attracting players that aren't playing in the Premier League anymore. Oh, spam my mic around. Players that are retired, basically.
But what about if we end up in a situation where Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, Karim Benzema are all applying their...
Ronaldo might already leave this summer. That could happen. He's been touted as leaving.
But let's...
that was the issue with the MLS, because they can never attract players early enough in their career, in their prime. Because Gerrard goes...
Could you argue that Benzema, while he may not be in his prime, is still a prime footballer? Like he's just played in a Champions League semi-final.
He will be for a year, and then he'll be gone to where he was. With all
so do you think the ceiling of... Oh, Garnacho's doing his thing. Do you think that the ceiling of Saudi is this, basically journeymen at the end of their career?
Yeah, jewels in the crown to show off the league.
So they signed journeymen in the way that, like, you know, when maybe Ramirez went or Ramirez went to China. Do you think it's just like what China did there now?
And you could argue China did it almost even better, because they got Tevez a little bit in his prime. They got Oscar in his prime.
Ramirez was young.
Ramirez, Hulk, I think, went there. Anelka, Drogba. So these are... if China couldn't do it, with all due respect, you know, Saudi Arabia, all these leagues struggle. They're always going to have a few big names. They're never going to, you know, Ronaldo's talking about top 5 leagues in the world. They'll struggle to be top 5 kind of joke leagues in the world, you know, because MLS is the bit of a joke league. With all due respect to MLS, it is a bit of a joke league in terms of the standard. I think Saudi Arabia is not even as good as that, is it? Is it?
No, I think you're probably right. But you know, with the ambition of the Saudis, you know, we've seen what they've done at Newcastle, for example.
Yeah.
Can they change, you know, your perception there? I think a lot of people will agree with what you just said. But if they throw enough money at it, is there a world in which the Saudi League could actually become more than a destination for elite, proven, older players?
I think you need 30 years of consistency. You need 30
Do you think it needs that level of track record?
Yeah. Because the issue is...
What about 5 years?
The issue with football is, like, if I'm looking at on the bench for City, I'm looking at someone like Mahrez on the bench for Man City. He's on the bench. He's probably got more followers and more social media clout than almost any sports star in the world. He's on the bench for Man City. So it's not about Saudi Arabia. Can they attract Lionel Messi? Can they attract Erling Haaland in 10 years' time? Yeah, they can. Can they attract 100 footballers of Premier League level quality to make the league decent?
What about this then? You know, the players that... So you know how we're talking about the players that are at City now that aren't getting in the team? Elite footballers, some of them. Say Newcastle follow the template of City and they become that. But they're players, rather than Man City maybe loaning players to, I don't know, where Blackpool or Preston or whatever. You could have a situation where a Newcastle United player is actually being loaned to Al Hilal. That will elevate the league there, won't it? Because you'll get players in their prime. They will, not necessarily in their prime, but on the way up, building, learning, becoming bigger players.
Yeah.
Is there a world in which the Saudi League can actually compete with... So Chelsea, for one point, would loan a lot of players to the Dutch league.
Yeah.
Could it become that?
Yeah, it could. I think the actual quantity of players, they could definitely get more of those kind of exciting young academy graduates going there.
So could it become the
Eredivisie? They're serious. They never go there. They're serious. Someone like James McAtee at Man City, a very exciting young English midfielder for Man City from the academy. Mate, he's never going to Saudi Arabia. Even in 20 years, he went to Sheffield United and helped them get promoted. Same with Tommy Doyle. Do you know what I mean? If they go at a young age, they're a joke footballer. They're never going to be a world-class footballer. That's the issue they have. And I've seen City build a network of football clubs like Girona, like New York City FC. It's hard.
What do you think this means? You know, if Benzema ends up
leaves, Real Madrid need a striker.
Have you seen
Harry Kane.
Have you seen the links with Harry Kane? Apparently Ancelotti suggested getting him, and they said it's going to be difficult, but we'll try.
That's the one club. You know, Harry Kane used the argument in terms of staying at Spurs and being a bit of a legend and all that. I think if Bayern Munich came, it feels a little bit, not too sure about that. Even Man City a little bit. But Real Madrid was like, wow, you have to go. If you're a serious footballer.
There's one reason that you don't. He will be given an awful lot of... Like, he'll basically have his pick of any football club with the exception of Man City, right? And he is closing in. He will become the Premier League's highest ever goal scorer. He will become that if he stays. Like, it's a guarantee. Oh, my God. He will become the Premier League's highest ever goal scorer if he stays. That matters. That's relevant. Breaking Alan Shearer's 260 is really relevant. Does the prestige of Real Madrid outweigh the 260?
A Copa del Rey in Spain is more than being the highest scorer in the history of the Premier League.
No, but what about if he becomes the highest scorer at Manchester United and wins an FA Cup? More than an FA Cup.
If I'm Harry Kane, the preference is to go to Man United for me. That's the preference, because I think there's a mixture of, I think what Ten Hag's building is a very interesting foundation. I think he's actually a very good manager. That's my opinion. But if it's no one else, you stay at Spurs or Real Madrid call in, and fine, you might ruin the fact that you might become the Premier League all-time scorer. By the way, if Haaland scores for 5 to 10 years, plays for 5 to 10 years at Man City, you could end up scoring 261 goals plus and still lose. It's not a firm record. The Champions League next week for Man City, that's a record. We either win or lose it. That's a moment in history.
So do you think...
How can a goal record be a trophy? It's pathetic.
If you're Kane then, and Real Madrid are on the horizon, Real Madrid want you. Man United want you. Ten Hag's Man United. Or... you are filling the shoes of Karim Benzema, one of the best to have ever done it. What do you do?
Real Madrid's more interesting because they've got Vinicius, Rodrigo, they've got Bellingham potentially coming in.
And he wins the Champions League. He possibly wins the Champions League.
You can't just detach what we know about Harry Kane from our opinions about it. What we know about Harry Kane is that the goal record does matter in England. His family is settled. He's not a kind of... Some players can go off and travel and play for 5-6 different clubs, and he's a homeboy. So I think him being at Man United, he's one of those, he's a homely kind of guy. You know what I'm trying to say?
No, I know what you're saying, homeboy.
You're not trying. He's a homely kind of guy. He's a rich tea digestive on a Thursday evening, put his feet up with his slippers on kind of guy. He is. And playing, I think
he's also an elite level footballer who is capable of scoring goals in La Liga.
Matt City was, and he loved living in Southampton for some reason. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think Harry Kane... We can't just say, he'll go to Real Madrid. He'll look at Gareth Bale and think, Gareth Bale was made of thick skin to do what he did and take the piss out of the Real Madrid fans playing golf.
Oh, you
and all
idiot! Veghorst,
he was 10 yards offside.
Did you see that?
10 yards offside.
Did you see that? He's literally standing in an offside position and then runs back on and tries to retrieve the ball. Do you know the rule, you utter moron?
Yeah, you shouldn't have called for the ball. But Harry Kane doesn't strike me. The most ambitious thing he could do is go to Manchester, which is a 5-hour drive, a 3-hour train journey. Even that, you think about it.
What's better for the legacy of Harry Kane? Going to Real Madrid and having that on your CV, or going to Manchester United and having that?
Real Madrid, being an English striker, being the captain of England, being arguably one of the most important England players to ever play since 1966.
Also, in terms of winning the European Cup, Real Madrid, they got to the semi this year. They've obviously owned the trophy for a number of years prior to that. I think you're probably right about Kane.
Where would you, if you're Harry Kane?
I've always said Manchester United because I do think the 260 record, breaking Shearer's record, is massive. But I also think now Real Madrid, you can't say no to Real Madrid. There are certain things in football that you just can't say no to. Certain things in life that you just can't say no to. Like when Real Madrid knock on your door and they say, "Do you want to lead the line? Do you want to fill in for Benzema?" The answer is yes. Like,
if you're serious about football.
But do you want to replace Benzema or do you want to replace Veghorst?
Yeah. And I saw, I can't remember what pundit it was. It might have been Darren Bent or someone saying, you can't forget, these people got lives. He's got a wife, he's got a kid, he's got kids and all that.
No, but do you know the other thing, Booth? Do you know what I think sometimes we can do, and maybe you're doing, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but you're thinking about it if you had to move to Spain. When you're elite and your money becomes no object, the world becomes an incredibly small place. Like in your head, maybe you're going, you got to move your family and you got to book flights and you got to, the world becomes so small. He won't have to do any of that. They can stay here. He'll have access to the Real Madrid private jet. Do you know what I mean? It's basically the same as... Let's just pretend that his family are going to stay. I imagine that he lives somewhere like Brentwood, right? Somewhere like Chigwell.
Michael Owen had to move his family when he went to
He
Real
didn't have to
Madrid.
do anything. He would have chosen.
I think you don't want to live without your family.
No.
It's hard to
but what I'm
explain,
saying is, mate, let's say that his family are in Chigwell, and he goes to play for Man United. I don't think the family move.
Yeah,
He'll get to Chigwell, see his missus and his kids as quick from Manchester as he would from Real Madrid. He'll have access to the Real Madrid private jet, who will say, whenever you want to go back, you go back. The world becomes, sometimes when we think about moving, we're thinking about booking train tickets.
I know what you're trying to say. I still think there's a weight. So moving to Madrid, he'd have to move. There's probably an argument his family would move like Michael Owen did. Okay, maybe they don't.
But remember, Mourinho went to Manchester and he didn't move his family. Mourinho's whole family stayed.
I think Harry Kane's got young kids. We'll get into the minutiae of Harry Kane's family, but long story short, you are a bit homesick, aren't you? And Harry Kane strikes me as someone that would be homesick going to Madrid.
Do you think he's good enough to lead the line?
Yeah. He's top 3 in the world.